Hello students, Brother Honeycutt here, and I promised you a tips and tricks video having to deal with PuTTY, Linux, and Emacs. So first off, I'm going to start off with PuTTY and the screen that you use to open up PuTTY, and just a few quick things here. Probably many of you know this, but you have the ability to save your information in default settings. So you can enter the IP address and the port, click on default settings and click save, and it'll save these settings, so every time you load it up it'll automatically populate there. The other thing you can do is save profiles. So say if I want a profile that connects to machine 23, I can say Linux Lab 23, click save, and now I have that profile that I can click on and go to that. But the default one that loads up is obviously the default settings. Another thing I want to show you is that you actually have the ability to change your colors in PuTTY. So many of you don't like the black background. I don't mind black background, but I find that it can be difficult to see at times. So you can come down in here to colors, and you can change it to your various colors down here and set up some other settings. So that's really handy to use. For me, I've set my background to white, the default background to all white, and that just gives me a clearer picture to look at. Other thing I like to change is my font size. So I think default is 10, and that's a little bit too small for me, so I've changed it to 12. And also I believe Courier New is the default font, if I'm not mistaken, and Courier New is kind of an ugly font. So Consolis is a Microsoft monospace font. It's really nice for programming. It's what I use at work, so that's what I've got it set at, and you can change your font to whatever size you'd like. So some of the settings you can change in there. Okay, so I've got PuTTY open here. Just show you a few things you can do in PuTTY. Many of you know that you can copy and make files like by going cp/home/cs124 template, and you'll see there I push the tab button to complete for me. Hopefully most of you have learned that feature, so you don't have to type out every command. You can just hit tab and it'll complete, but only if it's unique. So if I tab here, it doesn't do anything because there's no unique thing for it to populate. But if you hit tab twice, it'll give you all the options. So you can cp template, and let's just Control L will clear the screen for you. Many of you might type like homework 13.cpp or something like that after you type that command. But a cool handy little feature is if you just put dot, it'll copy the file with the same name into the directory you're currently at. So template.cpp, okay, dot, and it copied it into my directory. See, I have that template.cpp. If you have a bunch of files that you don't want in your directory, you can use the rm command to remove. So remove template.cpp. And it asks me if I want to remove that. I've actually added that myself. Normally it doesn't ask you, but I get nervous that I'm going to delete things. So that's a script that I've added to do that. And if you're interested in that, I can certainly show you how to do that. Just email me or post it in the discussion forum. So as you see, it's gone. Many of you will notice backup files showing up. Let's see, CD examples. Yeah, we don't have any backup files in here, so let's go Emacs small program.cpp. This is a file that I created during virtual office hours yesterday. So let's just make a change in here. I'll just add a comment. This is a comment. Control X, Control S to save. Control X, Control C to exit. So now we have this small program with the tilde at the end of it. What that is it's an automatic backup of the file. So this is the file before I hit save. or the previous save revision. Emacs automatically saves these. If you don't like them in your directory, it's easy enough to remove them. You can remove all of them at once by doing rm star tilde, and it'll remove any file in your directory that has a tilde at the end of it. A star is wildcard, meaning anything preceding. And it asks me if I want to remove that because I've added that script. I say yes, and when we look back in, you can see the one with the tilde is all gone. Okay, another thing that can be helpful, if you want to get back to your home directory, if you've navigated to a different directory that you've made, or to one of the home directories, type cd and it'll take you back home. If you want to create a directory, so as to organize your files, maybe by unit, that'd be a common thing to do. mkdir, make directory, and you can name it. So unit 1. So when I hit ls, now I have that unit 1 directory, and cd, change directory unit 1, now puts me inside of that directory. So when I hit ls, there's nothing inside of it. So now I can say cp/home/cs124/template tab.cpp period, and it'll copy template.cpp into my unit 1 directory. Now a cool thing you can do also is rename files, and you do this with the move command. So move template.cpp, and again I use the tab there to finish it for me, and I want to name this homework110.cpp, and this will actually rename the file. Essentially you're moving it from one location to another, just with a different name. So, and we can hit cd to go back to our home directory. Cd unit 1 takes us back into that directory. Another trick you can do is, if you don't want to go all the way back home, you just want to go one directory back, cd ... will take you back. Okay, another quick trick, so Control L to clear the screen again. If you hit LL, this will list things with more information, and the most handy of these is the timestamp. So if you're trying to figure out what file you're working on, you have a date and timestamp to figure out when it is that you were looking at that. Okay, some handy features for navigating around in PuTTY. If you want to go to previous commands, you can use the up and down arrows, and it just goes in order. And this goes across sessions too. So even when you first log in, you can access the commands you were using before you exited and in your previous session in PuTTY. So that's pretty handy to be able to just scroll up and down. But some even more handy tricks is if you hit Control R, you can start typing, and it'll find the last thing that started with that. So if I type G, it found something, small program, but if I add a plus to it, it found the last G++ that I used. You can use backspace to start over. So Control R, let's see. I changed the permissions on one of my files a few days ago. So if I hit ch, and I use that command chmod to change the settings of that directory. So this can be handy if you're trying to run a long command, you can't remember the whole thing, but you know what it starts with. You can use that Control R to find it in your previous command list. Okay, clear. And then the last thing I want to show you, this one is pretty handy, is if you do the exclamation point. It's called bang in programming terms. So bang, and the letter of the command you want to run, it'll run the last command that starts with that letter. So if I do bang G, it'll run G++ display function, because that was the last thing I ran with G. If I do bang E, it'll do Emacs small program.cpp, because that was the last thing that started with E. So that's really handy, especially if you're constantly going through the loop of compiling, testbed, style checker, and Emacs. That's 4 different commands. So you can just hit Command G, Command T, bang S for style checker. Obviously, I didn't use style checker last. I used a program called SSH, and then bang E to get back into Emacs. So that's handy, so you don't have to keep typing out commands. All right, so let's get into Emacs stuff, Emacs fun. So I'm going to cd into my examples directory because it's got some files that we can edit in here. ls to view those files, and I'm going to go back to this small program file. So, and in fact, yes, so we'll go into that. A few cool things about Emacs is that you can actually have multiple files open at once. You don't have to exit out to open up another file. You do this by doing Control X, Control F, and you'll see at the bottom here it says Find File. Now I can open up another file. If I don't know the name of it, that's fine. I hit Tab, and it'll give me options. So let's open up Display function, and we still can do autocomplete with Tab in here. So Tab Display function, and it'll open it up, and we have this other file. But that other file you were just looking at is still open. And the way you navigate between these is Control X, left and right arrow. So Control X, I'm using the left arrow right now, and it cycles through all your open files, if you will. So Emacs automatically opens up a few things, like this list that I was just looking at of the files, the loading script for Emacs, and then this scratch pad. This is handy if you just want to take some notes. And then you can close individual files as well. Control X, Control C closes all of Emacs. So that's small program.cpp. Okay, so Control X, Control F, display function.cpp. Another handy thing you can do is you can actually have multiple files open in the same window. To do this, you hit Control X 3, I believe. Yes, and it'll open them up side by side. And now we go, and Control X O moves from one to the other. So right now I'm on the right. Control X O puts me back on the left. Now you'll see that it has the same file open. If I edit over here, edit it on the other side. This is handy if you have a big long file and you want to look at one part of it while editing another part. Another thing you can do is you can use this Control X over, just like we did before, to cycle through files. So you can actually have two files open at once. So say like an assignment in one side of Emacs, and on the other side you can be looking at the project if you're copying code back and forth. And then to move across those again is Control X O. If you want to go back to just viewing one of those, Control X1 will give you one screen. Control X3 will split them horizontally. Control X2 will split them vertically. So use that to your heart's content. Another thing I wanted to show you all with Emacs is the ability to copy and paste. Many of you have learned that you can copy and paste with the mouse using PuTTY stuff, but you actually can do it with the mouse or with the keyboard right inside of Emacs. Hit Control Spacebar, and that starts the ability to highlight stuff. So use the left and right keys to highlight as much as you want. If you want to copy it, you hit Alt W, and that'll put it in your buffer. Now the paste command in Emacs is Control Y, and that actually stands for yank, and it's an old GNU term for pulling something from a buffer. But anyway, Control Y, and it'll paste that right there. You can also cut if you don't want to copy it, you just want to cut it, just like Control X in Windows. To do this, you hit Control W instead of Alt W, and it cuts it out of there. Another handy thing, and I love this, this is something you don't find in Windows, and I wish that it was in Windows and other programs, is I can hit Control, or let's copy some stuff. So I'm going to copy the if statement. I'm going to copy this void. So in Windows, whatever the last thing that's copied is the only thing you can paste. In Emacs, when you hit Control Y, it pastes the last thing. But now you can hit Alt Y, and it'll cycle through all of your recent things that you've copied inside of Emacs. So this makes it so you can copy a few things and then go and paste them at different points in your program. So again, this is Control Y to paste, and then Alt Y, and you just keep pressing Alt Y, cycles through all of the items you have in your buffer, or the most recent things that you've copied. And I think Emacs holds like 100 items, so even if you've been working for hours, you can still get back to something you copied a long time ago. So I love that feature. That's something I use all the time, and it's something that drives me nuts that it's not in more programs, because it's super handy. Okay, another thing I want to show you guys that I'm sure you've wanted, and it's not very intuitive, is undo. So say that I've deleted this line and I did not want to do that. To go back, I hit Control Shift the dash key, so the underscore key, and that's just like undo in Windows. So that's handy. So again, that's Control Shift underscore, and that'll undo. So if I do this and do garbagey booga, I can hit Control Shift underscore, and it will undo everything that I just did. So that's very handy. Another trick that can be useful is search and replace. This one is Alt Shift 5. Query replace. So say I want to replace everywhere that you find number, I want to replace with num. So I hit enter, and then I hit Y if I want to replace it. So yes. Oh, and it starts at the top of the program. So Alt Shift 5. I want to replace everywhere where that says number with num. Enter, yes, yes. So now everywhere that it asked me, and then you can say N if you don't want to replace it. So Y for replacing and N for not replacing. Last thing I'm going to show you guys before I finish up here in Emacs is some of you are having troubles with style checker. This is one way to beat style checker. It does auto formatting for you. If you use the highlight tool, like I showed you before, again, that's Control Spacebar, and then use the arrow keys to highlight. If you hit Tab, it will automatically format for you. So let's just unformat some stuff. Put that right there. That's obviously not right. Now again, Control Space, highlight this whole area, and watch what happens when I hit Tab. It puts everything the way that it's expected for BYUI style checker. So that'll get you to your 3-space indentation, and it even works for if statements that have additional. So let's add this one and put this here. And again, Control Space to highlight, and then Tab, and it will format everything in that region. And this works on a line-by-line basis. You don't have to highlight. If you just want to format this line, just hit Tab, and it'll put it where it goes. So those are some tips and tricks with PuTTY, Linux, and Emacs. Hopefully this has been helpful. I know it was kind of long-winded, but these are tools that can be handy if they come in the right circumstances, and some of them you might not use, but hopefully you found one or two things that'll be beneficial to you. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions about any of these, or if you want to see any more tips and tricks. You can post those in the discussion forums, or you're welcome to email me. So good luck, and I will see you guys later. Thank you.